writing is not for the faint of heart. I think, let me rephrase that. Copywriting is not for the faint of heart. I think everybody can write in, some form or fashion, but to write good copy is a skill that not everybody has. And I think that's okay, right? But the Lord has gifted some people, including my guest today, with the gifts and skills and talents to be a copywriter, not only for their own messaging, but for the messaging of others. My guest today is Krista Tressa, and she is the heart and soul behind Caring Messenger Copywriting, where she is able to craft influential messages. And it's not just a skill for her. This is a ministry and a passion for the people that she serves. She wears many hats beyond business. She's a wife, she's a mom, she's a follower of Christ, and she really does navigate the world of entrepreneurship with an external lens, which I think can be rare these days. She chooses to lead upside down, and she lets creative messaging speak volumes, connecting deeper, propelling your business to new heights. And so I hope that you get a lot out of this episode today. We're going to talk a little bit about a lot of things in copywriting, including we're going to touch on a little bit of AI and how she feels about that. And y'all, if copywriting and hiring a copywriter is what you believe that the Lord is calling you to in the next phase of your business, listen deeply and see if he might be calling you to reach out to Krista and see if you guys are a good fit for each other. So without further ado, let me invite you into my conversation with Krista Tressa. Let's dive in. Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no-nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, exploring how intimately faith applies to every part of your life, and how you can live that faith every single day in the marketplace. I felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of the few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Her Faith at Work. This is a re-record. I'm not going to lie. This is my friend Krista, and she's a copywriter, and we had a great episode like months ago, and then something happened with the recording and it was wonky and we couldn't use it. And so we decided to try again today, and it's storming outside. And so I'm like, okay. I don't know, but we're going to give it a go. And so hopefully, Lord willing, you're going to have an amazing episode. We're speaking that into existence, Jesus, because we know that you have things for us to talk to the audience about. So Krista, thank you again for your time and your expertise that I know you're going to bring to this conversation. Tell us about you.
Why, thank you, Jan. I appreciate that. Yes. Twice, two times. I don't know. Is that like the charm? I don't know. Maybe.
We're going to make it
Third
be.
time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember we had a lovely conversation way back whenever. But yeah, it's great to be here and be speaking, with your audience today. Just to wrap it up a little bit. Yeah, I'm a Christ-centered copywriter. And my business is Caring Messenger Copywriting. And yeah, I've been into the entrepreneurial space, if you will, since fall of 2022-ish, where I was just learning the trade of copywriting. Always been a writer, but I'm actually a pharmacist by trade and a career and tech ed teacher. And then the Lord had other plans, of course, because this is how he rolls, right?
Sure. Yep.
And yeah, he calls us into these different seasons. And so yeah, for me, he's like, I need you to be available. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. But just staying true to my faith, I'm like, all right, let's take that step forward, in faith, right? Not by sight.
Yep.
And here we are. So
Here we are. I love that.
for sure.
I was just listening to another podcast yesterday about being available, and the premise, I mean, it was like a 2 hour long podcast. Y'all, I promise this is not going to be a 2 hour episode. But It was so good because he was talking about being available and saying your best yes, and then trusting, and that's it. And that's, I mean, that's what we're called to do, right? Be available no matter what he's calling us to, whether it's a career change or speaking out or entering a new friendship or, whatever it is. We're called to say yes and then trust that he's got the rest of it. And so I think that's beautiful. That is quite the shift from pharmacist to copywriter.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people that there was just like, oh, that's so interesting. That's usually the
Yeah.
curiosity.
Right.
But I'm like, yeah, I have no idea either. It just, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I do consider myself an inspirational extrovert, and that's been throughout all my careers. Like you can ask my students, you can ask my
Yeah.
patients, back in the day when I was practicing pharmacy as inpatient. I've always been like just very transparent, very open, very like I just want to share, the value and things that the Lord's put in me.
Yeah.
And whatever he's gifted me, and I enjoy, just sharing that with, whether it's a client, a customer, a stranger, whoever. That's just, I think, yeah,
That's awesome.
God
Very
uniquely
cool.
made me. So we'll just
Very
go.
cool. Well, so I have a few questions. We're going to talk about something that is, I think is a little bit of a hot topic, um, which is artificial intelligence and using it to create content in your business. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know where you land on this. Even as a copywriter, I guess the $1 million question, and it doesn't have to be a long drawn out answer. It can even be yes or no, and we'll go into it a little bit more later. But do you use AI in your own business?
Very limited. But
Okay.
let me tell you why. I don't judge, okay? I'm just gonna share some little nuggets of wisdom and just
Sure,
tell
yeah. That's what we're
uh,
here for.
because yeah, a lot of people, especially if you're a startup business, like I was, and just like starting to get my, feet still wet into the entrepreneurial space. But yeah, there's a lot of things when you're starting out that you don't know, right? And so marketing and your messaging and copy, your branding, all that kind of stuff, that's just kind of like an unknown for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
Most
if you
people.
want to look at it, AI, right, the artificial intelligence, okay, I'm not threatened by it as a copywriter. Maybe some other copywriters are, I don't know. I kind of view it like you had said, it's a tool, just like
Hmm.
in healthcare when I was practicing pharmacy, or just like in teaching, right? We have many tools in
Yep.
teaching that we use to help educate our students. It's AI is the same, it's a tool. Okay.
Yep.
And so doesn't mean that you can fully and solely rely on just, one tool to like do it all. Right. It's not
Right.
magic per se, per
Yeah.
se. And it doesn't have some of the things that humans, right, that God breathed into,
For
humans
sure.
have. Um, and I'll just say the example, it doesn't have emotional intelligence. Okay. That's just a robot's not going to have emotional intelligence. It's just
Right.
not, right? It's not human.
Yep.
Um, and and so being able to tap into that, as a copywriter, where we use words, phrasing, headlines, taglines, all this kind of stuff, um, to tap into another human's emotions, right?
Hmm.
Triggering some sort of action to be taken, right? So that's
Right.
called
Yeah.
your CTA. So yeah, so the original question was like, what are my thoughts of
Well, do
AI?
you use it in your own business? I'd be curious as a copywriter, like in what capacity do you use AI in your business? Maybe that's a better way to ask it.
Okay, so I'll use it occasionally as a tool. And for
Mhm.
me, I use it more just to like help me outline things, or maybe like,
Right.
so for
Yeah.
example, I'm working on an ebook. Not sure how the Lord's going to have me use it exactly, if I'll use it kind of like more for a head of funnel, or what I'll do with it, or if I'll more kind of like a product to sell. Not sure
Hmm.
yet. But so I'll use it like just to get the creative juices going, to get
Right.
some sort of structure, if you will, just
Yeah.
because I'm kind of like type A. So I like to kind of have some sort of plan um, as to where my writing's going to go. So I'll use it in that way. So I would just caution everyone, like it's a tool,
Hmm.
and but it's only as good as what you know what I mean? Like the person behind
Yes.
that's
Well,
actually putting in the prompts and putting,
yeah.
thinking about all the things that you have to think about in
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah.
You know,
It's only as good as the information that you give it. So let me ask, what do you have specific things that you love doing in your business? Like what do you feel like is like what's your favorite part of copywriting?
the creativity, the just I love it when my clients just give me flexibility and be like, okay, or and a lot of times they haven't really thought about their brand voice or maybe like, their tone or they're like they're looking for a refresh. So I love to be like a, almost like a copy strategy partner, but
Mm,
then also just that kind of wordsmith like playing oh let's come up with something different, right? And let's stand outside of the noisy room and let's stand out in the crowd. And so I like them to go below the surface, but I like to go a little bit deeper, right?
So let's talk about brand voicing for a minute. I work with a lot of website clients that have a really hard time understanding A, the concept of brand voicing, and B, how to nail their own brand voice. So, talk to me a little bit about brand voicing and how you walk clients through the process of finding what their brand voice is. Because I think that whether someone works with a copywriter professionally or whether they're not quite at the point in their business where they can afford to do that, nailing that brand voice is going to be super crucial. And so I would love to be able to give somebody some really practical hands-on tools of ways that they can find their own brand voice even if they're not ready to take that step and hire a professional copywriter to help them work through actual content.
I would probably start off kind of like doing like a reflection, right? And like, what are your, passions, your goals? Like, what type of transformation, let's just call it that, do you want your customer, whether they're purchasing your service or your product, like what kind of transformation experience end goal do you want your ideal audience, client, customer, whatever, um, to receive at the end, right? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
you almost like work backwards, I think. Do you know what I mean? It's
That's
like,
good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like reverse psychology, I think.
Yeah. Reverse engineer. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of reverse engineering.
I think a knowing of like what lights you up because you don't want to compare, you don't want to copy, you don't want to, do you know what I mean? Because there's someone out there that needs whatever I believe, whatever you have, like that, whatever
Mm,
you right there, because otherwise God would have not have led you into the marketplace. That's how I
right.
believe, right?
Yep.
So the key is though to stand out from the crowd and from the noise, right, of the world. I feel, and this is why like everything is for God's glory, but like I just feel like Christian entrepreneurs and Christian small business, like there's so much that the Lord can, do in us and through us. And like, I mean, really the sky's the limit. There'll be words, I think, that come up in your mind and your heart and start writing those down and just being conscious of those. Um,
Hmm.
because usually those are the words that are going to depict what your true brand, the face behind your business, and that's what people are going to emotionally connect to, if that makes sense. Okay, so now how could you roll those into your brand voice and then make sure that across all whatever mediums you're using for your marketing, make sure that it's all the same.
I've heard that it's like I always tell my clients when you're branding yourself across multiple platforms, even down to the picture that you should use the same picture on all of your social media platforms because you're wanting that consistency and the quick recognition that people can get from that. So I think so many entrepreneurs fall into that visionary and creative category, and we like new things. Like my brain squirrels all the time, all the time. And so, from a copywriting standpoint, I would be really curious what you would tell somebody when they ask the question, how do I know if it's time to refresh my copy or if I'm just bored as a creative entrepreneur? Because I know that we can get super bored and tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. And yet for our audience, it's new. And
Mm.
so how does somebody know when it's time to do a refresh?
That's a God thing. Okay. That's girl, you're going deep there. That's a God thing. I'm gonna tell you to pray about that. And like I do pray with my clients if they're fine with it, I
Yeah.
do. Because yeah, that's really gonna have to be a client by client, very individual type thing. I don't think there's like, well, it's just like in parenting, right? There's no like guidebook, in entrepreneurship, there's no guidebook, right? For me,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. But yeah, very individual with that. I would pray about that. But I mean, you can ask for feedback, right? You can do different testing things and all that kind of stuff, but I would just like caution you with that as well, because like I said, the creep of comparison
Mm,
and when
yeah.
is it enough, what is success, all the worldly things that can creep in, right?
Yeah.
Just 'cause we're
Yeah.
Christian doesn't mean we don't get attacked, right? We
Right.
do.
Yeah.
But that's why we put our spiritual warfare on, our armor on every day. Um, I mean, I wouldn't worry that you're gonna miss that, because I feel like if the Lord is telling you, is prompting you, like
Yeah.
it's time,
Yeah.
but time for a change, like you're gonna be like, okay, yes, Lord.
I do think that there's value in looking at your copy specifically. And if you've put things out into the world and you're not seeing results, I do think that there's value in getting that second set of eyes or third, fourth, fifth set of eyes on your content to see if there might be something that you're missing. Maybe it's just your wording isn't quite matching the needs and the tone that your ideal client is looking for. And so I think that's where a set of expert eyes like Krista's and other copywriters, that they can look at your stuff and say, okay, this doesn't quite match what you're telling me your ideal client is and what they're needing. And so small little changes, it doesn't have to be a full site refresh or even a full page refresh, but maybe it's just like I was just talking to somebody the other day and she said, it's all about how you word the calls to action, even on the buttons that you have on your website can
Yep.
matter. And so it's not just big things, it can be little tiny things. So I would love for you to tell all the humans how they can find you if they are thinking, okay, I think it's time for me to stop using AI for all my copy and get some actual human help with their copy. So, how do people find you and get in touch to see if you guys are a good fit to work together?
Yeah, probably the easiest way would be my website,
Yep.
www.caring, like caring, Caring, messenger, all one word, .com,
Okay.
caringmessenger.com. I've got some freebies on there, DIY things that might be helpful to have in your marketing toolbox. Obviously, you can also get on my list to, just we'll book a call, a 20-minute, just see if we align, see if there's things that I can help you with as far as my copywriting services or my, copy marketing, mentoring, coaching, whatever you want to call it.
Great.
But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending your time and giving us your expertise in copywriting. I appreciate that the storm didn't knock us out this time. I think it's finally passed, which is great. And so you guys go check out all of Krista's things. They'll be in the show notes. And if you feel the Lord prompting you to take the next step and get some professional copywriting help, check it out. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If the Lord put someone on your heart that you think needs to hear this message today, will you just smash that share button? And if you haven't already followed the show, I would love for you to do that. Super extra points if you hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That helps the algorithm pick us up and drop us right in the AirPods of people that need to hear what the Lord is saying to them today. I hope you'll come back for the next episode of Her Faith at Work. The podcast comes out every Wednesday. And if you look down in the show notes, I've even got a couple of free downloads for you that I think you will really enjoy. With that, have a great week. See you next time.